Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Agates explained by Josh. So today is going to be a little bit of a more general video talking about agate locations worldwide in general. There's different types of agates also that can form, but I would say probably 90 to 95% of all agate types in the world are found in a volcanic host rock. So you can imagine there was a lava flow, and then there were gas bubbles that were trapped inside of this kind of slow flowing magma. It became stone, and the gas bubbles became like hollow cavities inside of this volcanic host rock. And at a later time there was like a silica rich fluid that came from the top layer, or sometimes even from the bottom, through pressure, higher temperatures, and it was transported through micro fractures into of the host rock inside of these bubbles, and that is how the silica fluid got inside and how the agates could form. I think all agates are formed in a hydrothermal environment, which means probably under some kind of water condition and also at relatively hot temperatures. Well, relatively hot, I think probably around 100 degrees Celsius. I think that's kind of the more common knowledge that's out there. And yeah, pretty much everywhere where there has been volcanic activity and where there's the potential of gas bubbles being trapped inside of a volcanic host rock, or just basically any kind of cavity inside of a stone, is where agates could form, when there was like some sort of silica rich fluid that could enter these cavities. And every single location in the world has their own specifics. If you have been looking at agates for over a decade, then you realize that there develops some kind of pattern that you can see from the outside, already on the shape, or like how the stones are formed, like the color of the backside, the bubbles they have are dense, or how symmetric or round a stone is, or how uneven the surface of the rough stone is. These are all indicators on how you can tell where an agate is actually from, but you have to have a lot of knowledge about that. And things that can help you building up that knowledge, of course, is just looking at thousands of rocks, or also getting some knowledge from books like these. So all of these are magazines I have been writing articles for. I've also been writing an article for the Rock and Gem magazine some years ago. But yeah, from publications about agates, from books about agates, I think the most famous book about agates is probably the books which is called just Agates. There's three different prints of this agate. So there's Agates 2 and Agates 3. All with different pictures and information inside of these books, and these are pretty big. They have been published by Johann Zenz, who is the author of these books, and I think currently in the United States these are also sold out, but I will bring a couple of these sets to the show in Tucson if you're, for example, interested in getting some of these books. This is another book that I wrote some articles for, some trips I did to Morocco, Malawi, China. This is something I wrote about Chinese agates, for example. But yeah, there's a lot of knowledge you need to have to be able to differentiate between the different agates. But yeah, it's not only from the outside that will give you some clues about where an agate might be from, but also from the inside. So for example, if you know which colors are predominantly formed at a certain location, then of course there's a higher chance that this agate is actually from this location and not from another location. So for example, if you find a lot of kind of yellowish agates, but know that at certain areas there's no yellow agates at all, then you can tell for sure that it's not from that area. So I will just show you some different agates and give you some information about these, which hopefully give you a little bit information to learn for today. So here, for example, we have an agate from Brazil. This used to be an anhydro, but it's not anymore. So that's another information that you need to have. For example, that some agates, they can have druzy inside. I have another piece where I can show you what a druzy is. And inside of the cavities, sometimes in a rock, there is water trapped inside for millions of years sometimes. And if you cut them in the right angle and just manage to not hit the cavity of the stone, then you can actually hear the more water move around, or you can even actually see it. But they dry out after some years. So because agates, they have the ability to store a certain amount of liquids in their crystal structure, the liquids can evaporate from the agates as well, and once they have dried out, then it's also not possible to get the water back inside. Sometimes there's like little tricks that somebody might drill a little hole from the backside and just make it nice and like paint it over or something, so you're not able to see the hole anymore, but this way you can get the water back inside of these stones. But other than that, once they're dried out, I think there's no way to get the water back. So if you're buying anhydrous, be aware that there might not be anhydrous forever. Just a little reminder there. And then this, for example, is also from Brazil, but like from an entirely different location. Like many countries where there was volcanic activity, they can have different agate locations over the entire country. Just talking about Germany, I think even within Germany there's close to 100 different locations where agates can be found, and they pretty much all have their own specific features from a certain location. So there's just so much knowledge out there that you can know, but I think it's impossible to know everything, and I learn new things pretty much every day. So it's always a learning process and never ends. But I enjoyed it a lot, so I'm having fun, obviously. So this is a polyhedroid agate, and these are famous because there's only 2 locations in the entire world where they have these kind of rectangular natural shapes. In this case, it's because there were like probably huge barite crystal sheets that left the cavities inside for the silica fluid to enter and then form these kind of rectangular shapes in between these huge sheets of barite crystals, which later dissolved and left back the agate. Then sometimes you can have agates with replacement. For example, this was a piece of a tree or a petrified wood or just a tree branch that actually filled out the entire cavity, but over the years it lost its liquid, like it evaporated, and the actual wood shrunk. So it got smaller, and actually it also had, a lot of times these pieces of wood, they will even have like an open gap because it's actually shrinking to a smaller size, but then it left a bigger space again inside of this sedimentary host rock that at a later time was filled with the agate that's surrounding this piece. So a lot of the sedimentary formed agates you will find together with some sort of organic remains or fossils, even like sometimes dinosaur bone or fossilized snails or clams or trees. So there's a lot of different types and variety. Corals, I think corals are also one of the most common types that sedimentary formed agates have formed after. Then here we have an agate from Argentina. This is from the La Manea location, and if you have seen a lot of La Manea agates from that location, then you're able to tell that this is an agate from La Manea just from the outside, because we have the experience of having seen hundreds or thousands of agates from this location, and the shape of the nodules is always different, but there's repeating patterns, and that's how you can tell where pieces are actually from. And a lot of the La Manea agates, they also have this kind of sedimentation process where you will see they have like a lot of this crumbles, I'm calling them right now, at the bottom of the stone. And then they actually can have a lot of different variety of colors, and this is also what we call a druzy, when it has like crystallized quartz crystals inside of an open space within the stone. So that's what we call druzy. Then we have next up an agate from China, and these are famous for having these perfectly symmetrical round shapes. This specific piece is from the high class mine, and you can tell this from seeing the host rock that entirely surrounds the piece, because this is a relatively hard host rock and these nodules don't pop out easily from the host rock. So a lot of times in these agates you will find remnants of the mother rock that is surrounding the pieces. They're also pretty commonly and typically found in these bright yellow and red colors, sometimes with amethyst. So this is a classic example for this location. This was once in the collection of Dietrich Meyer, who also has some information about himself in this book, for example. Then another type are the thunderic agates. This certain type is found in New Mexico, and it's also like there's hundreds of thunderic locations all over the world, but this is also really easy to tell because of the color and the shape of the nodule. Hard to believe for somebody who has not seen thousands of pieces from that location, but it all comes with experience and repeated patterns to be able to tell the differences. But this is actually a really special piece as well, because it has this kind of olive green color, which, if you have the information, you know is super rare from this location. And it also has some super tight parallax effect, which is also rather rare in Baker Ranch agates, at least when you have parallax agate that is this tight. And if you want to know what's parallax effect, you're welcome to check out my video that I did about parallax effect or shadow effect. And I also talk a lot about different types of agates. If you haven't checked out my earlier videos, for example, about flow channels, like in this incredible piece, they can see there's a lot of flow channels coming towards and outwards from the center. This one's also got some great parallax, and if you have some experience, you might already be able to tell from the outside that this agate is from Botswana. But looking at it from the inside, most people will be stunned, because red color in Botswana agates is actually also super rare. And yeah, there's just different factors on which you can determine where an agate might be from, what is rare, what is not so rare, and based on that you can also make your decisions on how to cut the stones. For example, the Botswana agates are usually, because they tend to have some great parallax, I tend to cut them for a tighter banding instead of the largest face, for example. So there's different factors that go into cutting the stones, with also having the knowledge about the certain locations. So yeah, that's a really cool piece. And one of the reasons why you might be able to tell that this agate's from Botswana, which you might look like I'm stupid telling that, this is actually man-made. So Botswana has an export ban for any kind of rough stone for, I think, probably close to 30 years now. So there's no rough stones of any type that can be exported from Botswana, so they need to pre-tumble the stones in the country to be able to export them, because they have been processed in some sort of way. But if you don't know that, you might also just think this is natural and has been found in a river. So that's all sort of information you need to have. And this right here, this is just a potato. But other really funny information, for example, is on Moroccan agates you will find a lot of times that they have broken backsides. And the reason why they have broken backsides is not that it's a natural habit, because they had natural fractures and broke off like this, but it is because the local miners, they negotiate over individual rough stones. So there's a lot of European collectors who go to Morocco, and the better the stone looks like from the outside, with like what we call a window, so the better it looks in rough shape, the more money they will get. So if you have a stone that's entirely closed or that's only showing white banding, they will chip and chip off more to be able to reveal more of the center of the stone. So if it shows some orange color like this, for example, it's a lot more valuable, and they'll be able to ask a lot more money for the rough stone in the end to sell it. I mean, it's good for them that they can get more money, but it's disappointing for people who are cutting them, like me, for example, because a lot of times when they're getting hit by the hammer once or twice too much or too hard, then they develop fractures from hitting the rocks with the hammer. And here you can see it, it goes pretty deep inside of the stone, and that can cause a lot of damage and also reduce the value of a stone by a lot. So in this case I had to recut the piece, cut it again to get rid of these fractures. It turned out better in the end, but that's like a risk and a factor that you need to know when looking at these stones, that they have been hit from the backside, that they might develop fractures that go deeper inside of the stone, and then you need to cut them in a different angle. So there's so much information you need to know about different locations or certain types that affect on how the stone might look inside before you actually cut the stone. And reading rough stones, for example, also comes into play with the pseudomorph type of agate, which also sometimes indicates from the outside, or fractures that you might see from the outside. but pseudomorph agates sometimes are pretty easy to spot, and then you can make your cutting decision based on in which direction the pseudomorph is going. So this is an agate from Turkey, which produces some of the most beautiful pseudomorph agates in the entire world, and this is what it looks like from the inside. So just beautiful pseudomorphs going on. So pseudomorph means nothing else than one kind of crystal has been replaced by another kind of crystal structure. In this case it were anhydrite crystals, most likely, which then at a later time have been replaced with agate. There's so many different factors and knowledge that goes into that. When I was a kid, there was also one collector who invited like a lot of other collectors to his home and made like a little competition game where he was like showing 20 different agates, and then you had to tell where the agates are from. I actually won the competition when I was 16 against collectors who've been collecting for 30 or 40 years, and then I was crowned the agate king in Germany, so that was kind of fun. And I wish this tradition would continue, but at the moment there is nobody in Germany who does that. Maybe I can do a challenge with you at some time and just show agates from the outside, and we'll check how much experience you already have figuring out where an agate might be from. There was a lot of information in this video today. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned a lot. If you liked what I've been talking about, please leave a thumbs up for the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to learn more. And also let me know which one of these agates or potatoes was your favorite tonight. And yeah, let me know if there's anything else you want to learn or would like me to talk about. Thanks for watching.